St. Augustine, a rich and vibrant city located in the northeast of our very own Sunshine State. St. Augustine was founded in 1565, making it the oldest continuously settled city in the United States. Being the oldest city in the nation, there are many locations and monuments that bring tourists in year-round, but within a rich history, something darker lies just beneath the surface.
I have had loosely personal experiences. The most familiar paranormal activity that I have in St. Augustine has to do with Ponce de Leon Hall, right over here at Flagler, as well as Forgotten Tonic. It's sort of like a running joke, but not really a joke at the bar I work at, that it is haunted.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I feel like the last 2 years, I had a friend pass away, and then I noticed things start to happen, and I was like, this is legit.
You know, my general manager claimed that one time she felt something breathe on her neck while she was alone, and it tends to only happen usually late at night if like a manager is there by themselves.
I've seen my names in like random places and noticed them, and I've had things like fall over off shelves for no reason. That's about it though.
I mean, my cat has stared off into corners quite often and had no reason to be doing that, and then gotten upset, like started growling, and so that made me think there might be some ghosts.
Lights will like pop, like it'll be real, like almost like a flash. You'll be in the restaurant, I have seen that, and it'll just go pew, like that, just out of nowhere.
I think you'd probably find slightly more believers.
Yeah, just because of the history of this like area.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of history in this town, and like a lot of, you know, old cemeteries and buildings, and so you hear, you know, all kinds of different stories.
After hearing some individual experiences with the paranormal, our crew waited for dark as we sought out a paranormal historical expert to help shed some light on the dark history St. Augustine was hiding.
I have lived in St. Augustine since January of 2021. I took a ghost tour when I was 7 years old, and afterwards I turned to my parents and I said, I want to be a tour guide in St. Augustine. I was born in South Florida, and I came up to St. Augustine all the time when I was a kid. I came up here as an adult, and the love was still very much there, so I decided to make it my goal to move up here and really get that silly little dream I had when I was a kid rolling, and eventually I managed it.
Directly after meeting Nova, we embarked on our tour around the city. Our first stop was Flagler College, formerly known as Ponce de Leon.
So when Henry Flagler first came to St. Augustine, he was actually here as a tourist. His first wife was very sick, and she needed the fresh, clean air of Florida versus the gross, nasty air of the north. The first hotel he ended up building is this one right here. It was originally known as the Ponce de Leon.
After building the Ponce de Leon, Flagler's first wife passed away in 1881. Shortly after her passing, Flagler remarried. However, his second wife, Alice Shrouds, would leave her mark on not only Henry Flagler himself, but as well as St. Augustine as a whole.
She was using her Ouija board a lot, and one day she was using it, and it said, listen, Henry Flagler is not your true love. And in order to find your true love, well, you're gonna need to get rid of your current husband. She went at him with a pair of sewing shears. He survived, of course, but he confined her to an insane asylum for the rest of her life. She did die in there, but, well, after death, it's not like she went on to the afterlife. She came back here to Flagler.
Continuing forward on the tour, we eventually reached Tolamato Cemetery. Tolamato Cemetery is a paranormal hotspot in St. Augustine, in which Nova has had many personal paranormal encounters.
I personally had 5 self-professed psychics on my tour that when we're getting off the platform, they'll point out the grave, and every single one of them has pointed to the same one. These will happen like months apart. It said that a pair of local boys, probably sometime in the early 1900s, they were tired of all the silly ghost stories that were coming out of Tolamato Cemetery, so they decided to spend the night here to put them all to rest. Well, shortly after midnight, they heard something outside their tent, but figuring that it was just a friend playing a prank on them, they weren't really bothered, and they went outside to see who it was, when they found that it was not a living person. Hovering just above the ground outside their tent was a woman in a long white dress. She had long gray hair spilling down her back and no face. They'd had an encounter with the ghost bride of Tolomato Cemetery. Now, the long white dress was her wedding dress. The long gray hair was actually a torn and dirtied wedding train, and what do brides wear on their faces if not their veils?
Moving on, our crew followed Nova through the streets of St. Augustine. We then arrived at the old city gate and was told the history of a poltergeist, who goes by the name of Little Elizabeth. We left Elizabeth a rose quartz crystal in hopes to bring her spirit love, joy, and emotional healing. However, moments later, the lights on our camera started flickering erratically.
The moment we went under, and it's still flickering, the moment we went under the gate, it started flickering like crazy. And then it just calmed down when you put the rose quartz in. But then I just replaced the battery, and it still flickers.
Well, I asked her nicely to not follow me home, so.
After our close encounter with the paranormal, we decided to start making our way back home.
What makes St. Augustine, aside from the history and the dead people? It's the living people.